This is the Dark Zero Horror Network. Psychological Autopsies.
What feeble excuse!
Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before we launch into the shadows today, I just want to take a quick second to acknowledge the incredible audience joining us from the Dark Zero Horror Network.
Hey, everyone.
We are absolutely thrilled to have you here. If you haven't already, please do us a huge favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around for my horror deep dives and insights. We have got some truly spooky territory to cover today.
It is great to be connecting with the Dark Zero listeners, and honestly, for this specific topic, having a horror-savvy audience is a huge plus, because we are unpacking a text that is equal parts noir mystery and, well, supernatural deconstruction.
We really are. Today, we are setting the time machine back to 1997. We are looking at a very specific, somewhat dusty corner of vampire history.
Oh, yeah.
We are talking about A Stirring of Dust, the tie-in novel to the cult classic TV show Forever Night.
Forever Night. Wow. Now, that is a title that conjures up a very specific aesthetic, doesn't it? For anyone watching TV in the 90s.
Oh.
Cop by night, vampire by nature, driving that vintage Cadillac through the streets of Toronto.
It's iconic. But here is the mission for today's deep dive. We aren't just talking about a piece of merchandise. You know how sometimes tie-in novels are just fluff?
Oh, absolutely. They can feel completely disposable, like you read them once and just forget them.
Right. They just retell an episode or feel like a cash grab. But the sources we've looked at suggest A Stirring of Dust is playing a different game entirely.
A much different game.
It didn't just replicate the show, it actively expanded the lore, it tried to fix massive plot holes that drove fans crazy for years, and in a weird way, it kind of predicted the future of vampire media.
I think that is the key takeaway here.
Yeah.
We need to view this book not just as a product on a shelf in 1997, but as a text that dives deeper into the character psychology than, the constraints of 90s television sometimes allowed.
Right.
It's about the internal landscape of the vampire as much as the external mystery.
Well, I am ready to get back on the night beat, so let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Okay, first things first. We need to set the scene. It is April 1997. The book is published by Boulevard Books, which is part of the Berkeley Publishing Group, and the author is Susan Sizemore.
Though, a quick note for the collectors out there, you might see her credited as Susan Garrett.
Oh, right.
Or referenced that way in old fandom discussions.
Yeah.
But yes, Susan Sizemore is the name on the cover. And this was significant because it was the first of 3 professionally published tie-ins.
Before this, it was all fan-made stuff, right?
Yeah, you had fan fiction, you had zines, maybe some newsletters, but this was the official, authorized expansion of the universe.
But, and this is where it gets really funny, the official stuff didn't exactly land smoothly with the die-hard fans.
No, it did not.
There was some serious drama regarding the cover art.
Ah, yes. The visual representation, the bane of every tie-in novel.
Apparently, when this book dropped, the fans absolutely hated the cover. And I don't mean they just disliked it. I mean a visceral, angry reaction. It was so bad that the author, Susan M. Garrett, or Sizemore, actually had to intervene directly with the fan base.
It just speaks to the intensity of that fan base. This was the era of mailing lists, remember?
Oh, yeah.
We aren't talking about Twitter or Reddit. This is email lists. Dial-up internet.
Yeah.
Very serious business.
Right. So she posted a challenge to a mailing list called FORKNAL, which, by the way, I love that old internet naming convention. It feels like an archaeological find.
It really does.
So she basically went to the fans and said, okay, you think you can do better? Prove it. She offered a prize for the best fan-created book cover.
Which is a brilliant community engagement move, honestly.
Totally.
Instead of getting defensive or ignoring the criticism, she invited them into the process. She validated their passion.
And the sources actually mentioned 2 fans specifically, Jennifer Rayburn and Sandy Chu. They submitted alternative designs just for A Stirring of Dust.
Wow.
It just goes to show this wasn't just a passive audience consuming content. They were, like, rewriting the visuals in real time.
It establishes the context perfectly. This book entered a world where the consumers were also creators and critics. They were paying very close attention to every detail.
Which brings us to the story itself. If these fans were that picky about the cover art, they were scrutinizing the plot with a microscope.
Precisely. So chronologically, we are situated during or just after season 3 of the show.
Okay.
The characters are in that specific headspace, tired, desperate, nearing the end of their ropes.
And the setup is classic noir. We have Detective Nick Knight, our brooding vampire cop, investigating a series of murders. And these aren't just any murders, they are grisly. We are talking decapitations.
Which for a vampire carries a very specific, very heavy weight,
Yeah.
right? Decapitation isn't just murder. It's one of the few ways to permanently end one of them.
Exactly. It's an execution method.
Yeah.
So the stakes, pun intended, are high immediately.
Right.
Now, Nick initially has a very human suspect. There's this guy, a recently paroled inmate, who had killed his wife in the exact same manner. Looks like an open and shut case.
It would be, in a standard police procedural. But this is Forever Night. The twist is that Nick begins to sense that the parolee is a red herring.
Of course.
He starts to suspect a supernatural element, specifically one of his own kind.
And not just a random vampire, but someone with a centuries-old score to settle. I love that trope.
Oh, yeah.
The past coming back to haunt you is practically the tagline for the entire show.
And it allows the narrative to focus on Nick's internal conflict. The sources highlight that while the plot is described as pulpy goodness, the real core is Nick dealing with the burn of the thirst. He's constantly fighting the monster within.
It's that longing to be human. The book apparently really leans into that season 3 angst.
It does. And this is where the medium of the novel shines. On TV, you have to show that angst through acting or maybe a voiceover. In the book, we get to sit inside Nick's head while he's standing over a headless body, wondering if he's really any different from the killer.
You get the texture of his hunger.
Exactly.
So we have a solid mystery. But what I found really fascinating, and here's where the deep dive part really kicks in, is how this book messes with the rules.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't just play in the sandbox, it tried to build a new castle.
You are referring to the expansion of the mythology.
Yeah.
This is where the author, Sizemore, really put her stamp on the Forever Night universe.
Yeah.
She took concepts that were vague in the show and gave them concrete, sometimes horrifying definitions.
Let's start with the Karuch.
The Karuch, right. In the series, this term was thrown around a few times. It was generally used to describe a lower stratum of vampire.
More feral, less sophisticated, a bit messy.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think the show kind of implied it was just bad luck. Like maybe it depended on who turned you or your first feeding. It was never really explained.
It was ambiguous. The show suggested the preferred blood type might be related to the first feed, but it was never like hard magic system stuff. The book changes that.
Okay.
It redefines the Karuch not as an accident, but as a failure.
Ouch.
Yes. The expert analysis notes that in the book, a Karuch is created when a weaker vampire tries to turn immortal, but isn't strong enough to do a proper job.
That is so much darker. It's like a botched surgery.
It adds a layer of tragedy and horror. It's not just a caste system, it's a symptom of weakness in the sire. It means if you are a Karuch, you are a living mistake.
Wow.
But the book doesn't stop there. It introduces something even lower than the Karuch.
A revenant. Now, I was surprised by this because I do not remember this from the show at all.
You wouldn't, because it's unique to the expanded lore in this book.
Okay, so what is it?
The Revenant is described as zombie-like, rotting, mindless, dead things.
So we are crossing the streams here. We are moving from vampire sophistication to full-on zombie horror.
And the origin is fascinating. The book says revenants are created by a vampire with a spiritual sickness when they feed.
A spiritual sickness. That sounds almost religious.
It implies that the vampire's own corrupted soul infects the victim in a way that doesn't turn them into a vampire, but into a rotting, contagious monster. And that word contagious is important.
That raises the stakes for Nick significantly. I mean, if you are a cop, you can handcuff a criminal. You can maybe stick a vampire if you're fast enough.
Right.
But a rotting, contagious zombie that can only be killed by decapitation or destroying the heart, that's a really bad night in Toronto.
It certainly complicates his night beat. But I think the most significant lore change, and the one that solves a massive plot hole from the show, is about holy objects.
Oh, yes, the Vachon loophole.
The Vachon loophole. Listeners who know the show will remember Vachon, another vampire character. He's cooler, more cynical, but here's the thing.
Meh.
He lives in a church.
He lives in a church.
He walks in and out of it constantly.
Which breaks the #1 rule of vampire lore.
Wow.
Holy ground burns. Vampires can't go into churches.
Right. The show tried to wave it away by saying maybe the church was deconsecrated,
Yeah.
but it always felt a bit thin.
Like the writers just shrugged and said, don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the book tackles this head on. It establishes that the power of holy objects is psychosomatic.
Right, so it's all in their heads.
Essentially, the book posits that a holy object, a cross, holy water, a church, only burns a vampire if the vampire believes it will burn them.
That is, wow. Okay, let's unpack this. So Vachon can walk into his church because he believes it's just a building.
Exactly. If he believes it is deconsecrated, or simply doesn't hold that specific faith-based fear, he is immune.
So the physical object has no inherent power.
None. The power comes from the vampire's mind reacting to the symbol.
That flips the entire script on the vampire versus God dynamic.
It shifts the power from the object to the subject. It implies that the vampire's weakness isn't an external divine judgment, but an internal manifestation of their own guilt.
So Nick Knight, our protagonist who is constantly moping, racked with guilt, and desperate for redemption,
Yes.
he is probably very susceptible to holy objects because he believes in his own damnation.
Precisely. He burns because he believes he deserves to burn.
That is deep. You are literally burning yourself with your own mind. It's almost like a placebo effect, but fatal.
It is a fascinating take, and honestly, a very clever way for the author to clean up the inconsistencies of a TV show production schedule. It turns a plot hole into a character study.
Speaking of clever additions, we have to talk about the Easter eggs. This book was dropping names left and right.
It certainly was. It wanted to make sure you knew exactly where it fit in the horror pantheon.
There's a cameo, or at least a mention, of a very famous historical figure being a vampire in this universe, Leicester Crowley.
The infamous occultist. The great beast.
The book has this great line, "Do what thou wilt," as dear Leicester used to say back when he was mortal.
It fits the tone perfectly. Crowley as a vampire and the Forever Night universe just makes sense.
It really does. But the biggest, weirdest addition has to be the title itself. A stirring of dust. This refers to a specific mechanism in the book, right?
Yes. And this is where the lore gets a little controversial for the canon purists. The book introduces the idea of resurrection.
Resurrection of a vampire who has already been dusted? I thought dust was the end. Game over.
Correct. The concept here is that if a vampire's ashes are exposed to the beams of a full moon, they can be restored to corporeality.
That sounds very specific and honestly very convenient if you want to bring back a dead villain.
It is. The sources point out that this mechanism calls the show's established canon into question. In the show, dust is dust, dead is dead. But here, there is a back door.
Where did this idea even come from?
Actually, it's a deep-cut literary reference. The expert analysis connects us back to the very roots of the genre, specifically Varney the Vampire.
Oh, wow.
In those penny dreadfuls from the 19th century, moonlight reviving a corpse was a common trope.
So she was pulling from the classics. I respect that, even if it breaks the show's rules.
It connects Forever Night to the broader history of vampire fiction, which is a nice touch for a tie-in novel.
And speaking of broader vampire fiction, there is a meta moment in the book that I absolutely love. The sources mention the book references a new show on the block.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes. The book actually name drops Buffy.
Which places the novel firmly in that late 90s pop culture zeitgeist. It acknowledges that the torch is being passed, in a way.
Right. Forever Night was ending. It was the old guard, the noir, the brooding, and Buffy was just beginning to explode. It's a nice little wink to the reader. Like, we know what else you're watching.
Exactly.
So we have the plot, the lore, the Easter eggs, but the big question remains, was the book actually any good?
The consensus seems to be competent.
Competent? That sounds like damnation with faint praise. It was fine.
Well, it's a tie-in novel. The reviews we looked at gave it around a 3-star rating, or 6.5 out of 10. It's described as decent. It's not winning a Pulitzer, but it's not an embarrassment.
But there's a but here, isn't there?
There is. While it might not be high literature, the fans and reviewers noted something important. The book seemed to show more love for the characters and the concept than the TV series itself sometimes did.
That is a bold claim.
The characters felt rounded. They felt true to their Season 3 selves. The book took the time to explore their personalities in a way that a 45-minute episode couldn't always do.
So for the fans, getting that extra time with Nick was worth the price, even if the writing wasn't revolutionary.
Exactly. It captured the vibe. Although we should mention, it wasn't perfect. There were some editor's bin errors that slipped through.
Oh, right. The magic sword. I love a good continuity error.
The reviews mention a sword that seems to appear and disappear from scenes randomly. 1 minute he's holding it, the next it's gone, then it's back.
A continuity error in text form. That's almost impressive.
It happens. And the narrative style relied heavily on flashbacks, which mirrored the structure of the show, but can be a bit repetitive in a novel.
Sure. But if you're a fan, you're there for the mood. You're there for the angst. And it sounds like this book delivered that in spades.
It was a piece of essential pulpy goodness, as one reviewer put it. And for a tie-in novel, pulpy goodness is exactly what you want.
So what does this all mean for us today? Why are we talking about a 1997 paperback about a canceled TV show?
I think it serves as a fascinating time capsule. It captures a moment in fandom where the audience was demanding more depth, and the tie-in media actually tried to provide it.
Right?
It clarified the rules of magic and belief in a way that enriches the show, even if you just watch the episodes.
It turns the subtext into text. Especially that stuff about the Karuch and the holy objects. It fundamentally changes how you view the series.
It really does. It validates the fan theories.
I agree. It's a reminder that sometimes the most interesting lore isn't on the screen. It's in the dusty paperbacks on the bottom shelf of a used bookstore.
Before we go, I want to leave the listener with one final thought. We talked about the psychosomatic nature of holy objects.
Right. The mind over matter aspect.
If that is true, it raises a profound theological question for this universe. Does the vampire's weakness come from God? Or is the burning entirely a manifestation of their own self-guilt? If a vampire truly 100% forgave themselves, if they had zero guilt, would the cross still burn?
That is going to keep me up tonight. That is a terrifying thought. If you think you know the answer, let us know in the comments.
It's a question worth pondering.
Huge thanks for connecting those dots today. And thank you to you, the listener, for diving deep with us. Keep questioning the lore, and we will see you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.
Stay spoopy.